Hello, one and all, and welcome to the podcast we call the Fantastival with myself, Stephen Nussbaum. In the podcast, I invite my guests to come on, talk to me all about their musical tastes, their memories, their experiences, and they get to collate their fantasy festival, which I have christened Fantastivals. We are now on episode number 106. We are now in mid-October. I hope everyone is well and enjoying themselves. There's so much going on. And before we start this one, just want to say a massive thank you to Indie Emporium, who was my guest in episode 105. Her album Home Truths is now out on vinyl. You can order that from hmv.com, a superb album. So please go and listen to that episode and get yourself a copy of her debut album. You will not be sorry. That was 105 though. This is 106, and I am absolutely delighted to have on the Fantastival Podcast this week new music champion herself. It's the legend. It can only be the one and only. It's Sam Shiner.
Oh, what a lovely entrance. Thank you. Thanks very much for inviting me on. 106 episodes. That's some good going.
I know. It feels like yesterday when I started this, and sometimes when I look back and I think, wow, I've done 106 of these. So I'm so glad you're here to join me, and I can't wait to hear about your fantasy festival and all about your musical taste. And before we hit that, Sam, I always like to ask my guests about how they're doing in terms of mental health. As we record, it's Mental Health Day today. So, Sam, how are you?
Oh, thank you. Yes, it is World Mental Health Day today. And yeah, I'm very good. Yeah, I do have my ups and downs occasionally. It has to be said. I think we all do, really, especially the last couple of years. But no, at the moment, I'm doing very well. Thank you, Steve.
Great to hear. So I mentioned you as new music champion. So let's talk about that first. You seem very active within the new music scene. So how did that come about, Sam?
Well, yeah, it probably maybe, 4 years ago, I think it kind of all started. And I think I started pushing maybe a couple of bands here and there, and bands are sort of asking me, is it okay if you take us into our new tune? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Like, would you share it with your followers? Yeah, absolutely. So I think that was where it kind of started. And then I suppose the big change was when I did the event, which was over 3 years ago now, which is scary. The event in Coventry where we had the Latham, City Lights, and a few of the bands all playing at the Indie Empire in Coventry. But yeah, I think that was kind of like the catalyst, really. That was when it kind of went from being just something that I did a little bit here on the side to something that I devoted pretty much every minute of my life to, really. Like the build up to that event was just like 6 months of just all I did was just planning and preparing and pushing all the new bands, and that's where it started, really. And I think since then, it just grows and grows. So you get more and more bands asking you to have a listen and recommendations from other people, and yeah, that's just kind of grown from there. It's got to kind of the stage now where it's like kind of unmanageable. I wish I had more time to do it, but I do as much as I can.
And how did that event come about? Was it just a point of it was just time to put an event on, or were you asked to do something? Because, Coventry Empire, obviously I work for HMV, so I know the Coventry Empire well. It's not a small venue, so how did that come about then, Sam?
Well, I think we just planned to have like a Twitter party, first of all, with like some of the people that were all like, there wasn't really kind of like a new music scene at that time. There was, but it wasn't really like, as you see it now, there's very much a community on Twitter that is there for the new music. There kind of really wasn't one then. And I think me and a few people that are all kind of like into these upcoming bands had said, wouldn't it be great if we had a night where we plan a night out and get a couple of the bands playing? And that was the original concept that kind of just in my mind, because I get carried away with things, I was like, why don't we just like hire a venue and get like 5 or 6 bands? So yeah, that's where it started, and I went into it completely naively, completely overconfident that it was going to be really, really easy, and it really wasn't. So yeah, it was definitely a learning curve. And in hindsight, if I go back to 2019 at the start, I probably wouldn't do it, because it was like, yeah, I definitely aged in 2019 in the lead up to it. But yeah, it was just one of those little crazy ideas. We're like, let's get everyone together for a night and get some of the bands on, get them all together. And yeah, just kind of that idea, I just took it a little bit too far, I think. But it was such a good night, and probably one of the best nights of my life, really. It was really good fun.
That's amazing. So, I mean, obviously that was in 2019 and COVID hits in like 2020. Did that kind of mean you had to take a different approach to new music? Was it more about getting things out from a social aspect at that point then?
Yeah, but I think it did, like COVID aside, obviously COVID being an awful thing, I think for the new music scene it was actually a huge benefit, because people had way more time on their hands. Then we had things like the virtual pub crawl, and I did loads of podcasts with some of the upcoming bands, and people were really kind of into the whole like social media side of it all. And I think it was really, really useful for bands, more so than it would have been if we hadn't have had COVID. Like with Tim's listening parties and things like that, I think music was something that more people got into because there's nothing really much else to do. So I think in terms of new music and upcoming bands, I think it was a really good thing.
So Sam, you're not only a new music champion, you've got your own music show as well called Indie Emporium on Barrelhouse Radio. I mean, how did that come about?
Wow, so in actual fact, the guy that runs Barrelhouse, before he'd even started the station, he'd messaged me and said, "Oh, I'd love you to do a show." And at the time he'd asked me, that was probably like towards the end of 2019. I'd never done a radio show before, so I was a bit like, "Oh, I don't know, I've not done a show before." But the station wasn't due to actually start until the July 2020, I think. So I said, okay, yeah, I'll do it once the station's up and running. But obviously then COVID hit, and then we started doing the virtual pub crawl. So I started doing another show with Radio Free Matlock, doing the Indie Emporium, the VPC introduces like every fortnight. So by the time Barrelhouse actually started, I'd already done another show. So yeah, it was just kind of a promise to my friend Lee, really, the guy that set it all up. He asked me to do a show before he set the station up, and I was like, yeah, absolutely. But I kind of changed like the show format. And yeah, I've been doing this one for, goodness, I've probably been doing the Sunday one for about a year now.
And how have you found it? Because, you know, I've done quite a few podcasts and it took me a while to get in the habit of essentially hosting something. Was it something that's come naturally to you, or have you had to work on it?
So yeah, when I first did radio shows, I used to pre-record them. So it was like, it took about 14 hours to do a 2-hour show. So I'd sit there and import all the MP3s and sit there and record your own voiceovers. It's quite hard to be enthusiastic like on a Monday night when you're recording for next Saturday, going, "Happy Saturday, guys, hope everyone's enjoying the weekend, got the bevies in the freezer, in the fridge or whatever." So yeah, it's quite difficult. I found it easier to do live radio than pre-recording. But yeah, I think it does, I still, even now, I do get a little bit of like pre-show jitters, because you are effectively just, when I'm doing my radio show, I'm effectively just talking to myself for a couple of hours. So I think having done it now for like 2.5 years, the shows and podcasts and stuff, you do kind of learn to get used to it, and you can kind of engage with people even though you're not talking to anyone. So yeah, it does get better with practice, but I do still get nervous sometimes.
I think it's all about the jitters. Like, I still get nervous doing the podcast when you're waiting for someone to come into like a Zoom room, when you see someone pop up, you do get the nerves. But I think that's a good thing, because it means like you care about it and you want it to go well, and it means a lot.
Exactly that. Yeah, exactly that. If you weren't nervous and you didn't care, then no, it shows that you care and you're passionate about it. But no, I do enjoy doing them. I think I've become kind of like infamous for my mishaps live on radio. Like, you name a mishap, it's happened on one of my shows.
So people can listen. If no one's listened before, people can listen to that, right? It goes out every Sunday at 2:00.
Yeah, I did a 2-hour special yesterday, but that was kind of like a one-off. I just had loads of stuff that I wanted to play. But yeah, generally it's at 2 p.m. every Sunday on Barrelhouse Radio. But yeah, no, it's good fun. It's just like, I do a lot of new music, some of the old classics as well, which I think is kind of nice. Like, if you're kind of not sure if you want to go fully into the new music scene, I play a lot of stuff that you know, and then just throw in a few new ones too.
Sounds great. So if no one's listened yet, please go and listen to Sam on the Indie Emporium. And if you weren't busy enough, Sam, you also manage a band, right? A band who have actually been picked on this very podcast to be a fancy festival act before. So in episode 88, Lucy Nichol picked the Ras, who I'd seen them on social at the time, but hadn't really heard their stuff. So I got into the Ras through them actually being picked as a fancy festival act. But you're their manager.
I am, yeah. Oh, good old Lucy. She's lovely. She came to watch them in Newcastle with us last year. She's brilliant. But yeah, no. So I've got a full-time job as well. So yeah, as well as everything else, the full-time job, I do manage the Ras too, for my sins. No, I'm joking. I love them.
So what made you want to take the plunge into band management? Because obviously people are big fans of bands, but there's a massive difference between being a fan of a band and going, okay, I'm actually going to manage the band. So I mean, how's that kind of fallen on your lap, Sam?
They asked me, so I'd never planned to do it. So I just got this Instagram message. It was probably probably May last year, a few weeks after their album came out. And they just started talking to me about like managers, and did I know anyone that might be suitable to take over their management, because they had a manager. It wasn't they'd fallen out with him, but maybe they just felt that somebody else could help them a bit more, should we say. So I just said, oh, well, obviously I know people that manage bands. I said, but I can't really vouch for them. I don't really know much about band management. And they were just kind of like, well, we were kind of actually wondering if you wanted to manage us. And at first of all, I was like, spat my tea out, like, absolutely no. Like, I've got no experience managing a band. But they said, oh, yeah, but you know quite a few people in the scene. And we really love, like, what you're doing. Like, you love our album, which is obviously important. And I love that album. So we're like, okay, we'll have a Zoom meeting and see how we get on. Couldn't understand them because they're very Scottish. Like trying to talk to all five of them at the same time. But we got on really, really well. And I just said, well, we'll give it a go, shall we? And here we are 18 months down the line. And I've still got in my hair, I still haven't got any grey hairs, which is a miracle.
Yeah, you've got more hair than me, and I don't even manage a band, so I can only commend you on that one, Sam. So the Rars are a great band. Let's give them a shout out then. So if anyone hasn't heard of the Rars, I'm guessing most people probably have, but if anyone hasn't, you can listen to the Rars on Spotify, Apple Music. They're quite active on social as well, right, Sam? So people can go and give them a follow on Twitter or on Insta, wherever they want to follow them.
Absolutely. Yeah, and the album 2 is in the pipeline. We can't say exactly when it's going to be, because all the logistics of releasing an album, it's not just a case of writing the songs and boom, there's an album. You've got things like actually creating a record, creating vinyl, getting it out there. But hopefully sometime next year we will have a new Raz album on the way, which is very exciting. And it's nice to be a part of this right from the start rather than coming in after the album was released. So it's been nice to be part of their team while it's all going on, which is good fun. But yes, please do go and give them a follow. They are lovely chaps.
Brilliant. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So if you don't follow the Raz or listen to them, please, after this podcast, go and do so. We mentioned the Raz. In terms of your own musical taste, you obviously host the Indie Emporium, but what kind of music are you into, Sam? Is it you just indie, or is there a lot more to you than just indie?
Oh yeah, no, I'm into quite a lot of genres of music. I think in my heart I am an indie guitar girl, but especially with the new music scene as well. Like I love anything. Like you can send me anything, like soul, gospel, jazz, R&B, anything, rap. I am open-minded to everything. I think my heart is like, when I was like a late teenager, I fell in love with the Libertines and I used to buy The Enemy every week. So I think my heart is indie guitar music. But no, I love and listen to a lot of different genres. So yeah, not just indie rock.
I used to love The Enemy and Melody Maker when they both used to come out at the same point every week, and kind of a bit spoilt. And now, to me anyway, there's no kind of music paper or tabloid or black paper like that what you would want to listen to, I think, which is a real shame, because I've only really got back into new music since doing this podcast, and there's so much content out there, but it doesn't seem to be like a paper, although I guess it's probably not needed, but it's a real shame there isn't one
yeah,
available.
And Q Magazine as well. So Q Magazine, after I stopped buying it, I think Enemy kind of changed a little while back, didn't it, in terms of its content. I mean, nothing against Enemy, but I just don't think they had, like they did back in the noughties. I don't think they've got their finger on the pulse in the kind of like same kind of area that Enemy fans were used to. I think we were kind of used to like the noughties in guitar, like Arctic Monkeys, Libertines, The Strokes and bands like that. And I think they kind of went off that path a little bit. But I used to buy Q Magazine a lot, and then that, obviously, their Q Magazine folded, so no pun intended. But yeah, it's a shame. And I do still think there's a market for it, though. I mean, if you think about books and vinyl, like people are still very much, like they want to have things that they can hold and they can feel, and do you know what I mean? That like tangible things. They don't want to read a music magazine online, I don't think. So maybe there's a market for it still.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree. So Sam, I'm well aware how much music you listen to, but at the moment, what are you listening to? What's doing it for you? Whether that's an old act or a new act, what are you listening to? So
I would do a huge recommendation to go and listen to Wonder Horse. So Wonder Horse is a solo project by this guy called Jacob Slater, who used to be in another band. He's just got this new like solo project for the band. But they released their debut album on Friday, which is called Cub, and it's just stunning. Like it's just his depth of music is just brilliant. So yeah, that's probably what I've been listening to the last few days quite a lot. But as you say, I do get every week, I think it's about 12 hours on my release radar. So every Friday I'll get this like playlist through, and I've got to like listen through it all and pick up all the new stuff.
That sounds great, but also sounds like a massive commitment to get through all of that music.
Yeah, I mean, I say 12 hours. A lot of it sometimes it's from the week before. But do you know what? I've done it so often now. Like on a Friday, I get up quite early anyway. But it's the first thing I do on a Friday is I'll get the music on and then listen to it throughout the day on Friday. and then kind of like collate my own playlist from that. But yeah, I do listen to a lot. And I was saying on my radio yesterday that I don't spend as much time listening to older music as I might like at the moment, because I kind of run out of minutes and I just spend all my time listening to new stuff. But it's always good, so that's why I do it.
That's brilliant. Sounds really cool. So Sam, let me take you back then, before you was into new music, where you was a young Sam looking to go and buy your first record. Do you remember buying your first record and what that album was?
I can remember buying my first CD. You go and buy your own first CD, and it's really embarrassing. It's kind of funny. It's really embarrassing, but I can remember going to Woolworths with my friend, and we both bought a copy of, do you remember South Park, The Chef?
Yeah.
So the first CD I bought was that chocolate salty balls. Yeah, that was the first ever proper CD that I bought myself, and then like a bag of those little strawberry creams you could get from Woolworths Pick and Mix. But since then my music taste has got a lot cooler.
Nothing wrong. Always say in this podcast, there's no such thing as a guilty pleasure. We just have pleasures. It's all good. It's not a bad thing at all. So Sam, this podcast is all about you getting to collate your fantasy festival. Are you a big fan of festivals? Have you been to many?
Oh goodness, yeah. So I was probably quite a late starter though going to festival. I think I was 19 when I went to my first festival. And considering I kind of got into music when I was like 16, like I always wanted to go to a festival. And yeah, I was 19. I went to Reading for the first time. But I did Reading Festival 10 years in a row. So this year I've done Why Not Festival, Isle of Wight Festival. I did Reading last year. I've never done Glastonbury, which is a shame. Had a ticket for this year, but I had Liam Gallagher and Isle of Wight, so I couldn't really justify doing another festival. I would die. So I'd still love to do Glastonbury, but yeah, no, I'm a big festival goer.
Do you have any favourite festival moments at all?
Oh goodness, wow, oh goodness, that's a good question. I don't know really. I suppose this year I'll have to say. So this year this feeling asked me to DJ. Well, I DJ'd last year. I say DJ, like going on to play music. But I think this year the biggest highlight was we did a Saturday night little DJ set on the stage, and it was raining outside. I think Cortina's had just played on the main stage, and I think everyone was looking for shelter, but we were just like, we're getting all the punters in. So we had the whole tent completely packed out, and it was just such an amazing feeling. Like if you could bottle that feeling up, I was just dancing at the front of the stage, and we were taking it in turns to put songs on. But yeah, that was probably for this year my festival highlight. But there's been so many, like in terms of some of the bands that I've seen, like Muse and Foo Fighters and Guns N' Roses, and like some huge bands like that. Yeah. Many great moments.
Oh, I love it. And what about gigs, Sam? Do you have like a favourite gig, or are there a few gigs that you look back on? Is there a favourite one for you?
Yeah, I think my favourite ever gig would be Stone Roses, Wembley, 2017. Yeah, I think because that was their last ever like London show. So I'd seen them 4 times before the Wembley show, and I think I was a little bit worse for wear at Etihad. So I went into Wembley like, I'm going to enjoy this. And it was, I think I can't describe that, the atmosphere in the crowd. It was just kind of electric. So I think in terms of like how I felt, I can remember just like hearing like This Is the One, and everyone was just singing, and it was just the most amazing atmosphere. But there's been loads and loads of gigs that you just think about, and you just can imagine yourself back there. I think that is probably my favourite so far.
I've got to ask you, with Ian Brown being fairly topical, are you pro backing music or against backing music for him?
Well, to be fair, I've never seen Ian Brown live as like a solo artist, and I know a lot of people that went to go and see him have seen him before with a band, and obviously said that it enhanced his performance. But I said yes to my show yesterday too, we're talking about Ian Brown. And I don't know, I've seen a few videos where I think to myself, well, everyone knows that Ian can't really sing anyway, so I don't think you should ever go to an Ian Brown concert expecting like Pavarotti. But I've seen a few videos and it looks quite fun. So I think it just depends on how open-minded you are. I think I would have quite enjoyed it because he's a legend to me. So, and I think for him to go and stand up on stage, just him and the crowd, like to have that confidence, I think is quite cool. But yeah, I guess if you're paying money and you expect there to be a band, then I can see where people were disappointed. But I think I would have enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think that's a good answer. I think I agree with everything you've said there. So that was a bit about Sam's musical taste. And like I said at the top of the podcast, this is all about getting our guests to collate their fantasy festivals. So Sam gets to choose any 5 acts, one of who must play one of their studio albums in full, and an encore, which all 5 acts can play together to end Sam's fantasy festival. So like I mentioned in the last episode, I had the amazing India Arkin on. She created her North Star Fantasy Festival. In her opening slot, she went for Arlo Parks. Super second slot, she had a new artist to me called Still Woozy, who I still haven't heard yet, but look forward to hearing his stuff. Midway Madness, she went for Lily Allen. Pre-headline act, she picked Florence and the Machine. And in her headline act, making her Fantastival debut, was Billie Eilish. And India got her to play her album Happier Than Ever. And for her encore, she had all 5 acts pick the track Night Shift that I'd also never heard of. So some new acts for me on that one. So once again, thank you to India for being my guest in 105. But before we talk about your lineup, Sam, we need to give your fantasy festival a name and we need to give it a venue. So Sam, what are you going to call your fantasy festival?
Oh, I didn't think about what I'd call it.
Oh.
No. Oh, no. We'll have to do something like Shine Fest or something like that.
All right, let's provisionally title it Shine Fest, and if we think of a better title as we go on,
I'm sorry, I didn't think of the name of it.
No problem. All right, so provisionally title Shine Fest. I've got a venue
though.
You got a venue?
Yeah.
All right, so Sam, you can take us.
Well, I'll just say anywhere.
Yeah, you can take us anywhere. It can literally be your back garden. It can be Coventry Empire, Wembley Stadium again, wherever you want to take us, Sam. We'll follow you to Shine Fest as it stands.
Shine Fest as it stands. So I'll send you a photograph of it after. So I would love to have my fantasy festival hosted at Stourhead National Park.
Okay, so I haven't heard of Stourhead National Park. So why are you taking us there, Sam?
Well, it's just beautiful. It's stunning. It's like if you imagine what heaven looks like, it's just beautiful. It's so cool. It's got like a huge lake, and it'd just be amazing to see bands playing there. But yeah, I went there a couple of weeks ago. When you were saying about locations, I thought, I did think when I was there, I thought, it'd be so good. Imagine they had like one of the stages like in the middle of the lake. And yeah, it's just a really nice place, and it's local to me too. So I was thinking, to do my festival, I'd like to have it somewhere quite local.
Yeah, I like it. You had like a Fantastival premonition then, right? Before you knew you were coming on, you were like, this is the best place for a fantasy festival. And then the phone rang and it was like, it was meant to be.
Yes.
So Stourhead National Park we're going to. So before we talk about your 5 acts, Sam, I know and I can tell already that you're a wealth of musical knowledge, and getting it down to 5 has been difficult, like you said before we started recording. Are there any acts who you want to shout out quickly about who you love and adore, but just haven't been lucky enough to join us at Stourhead National Park?
Oh, yeah. So the Ras, I wanted to put the Ras in, and I was and I thought, no, I put them in everything. So I was thinking, obviously, they would be on my dream festival lineup, but the bands that I've chosen aren't. I thought, no, I'm going to do it Ras aside, no favouritism. So the Ras, I did they were in and out. The Heavy North as well from Liverpool, I was like, oh, I'm so close to putting you in. And yeah, so I can't think of the like upcoming bands. So many though. Like if I had my dream festival, I'd have about 200 bands playing. I really would.
If you did though, Sam, this would be like an 8-hour podcast, which is probably a bit too long, which is why I like to keep it to 5. Right, so the Rasmus out, but they've already had an appearance at a fantasy festival. The Heavy North boys will have to wait another week, although I have had 3 of them on the podcast, so I think they'll be right for the time being. So Kenny and the boys have to wait. So 2 o'clock then, Shine Fest sold out. Stourhead National Park looks lovely. Time for your opening act, Sam. So who's going to open Shine Fest?
We're opening with a bang, and a band from Australia. They're called Amel and the Sniffers. I don't know if you've heard of them.
Yeah, I've heard of them just through work, and I think when their album came out, they were the FOP Artist of the Month, but I don't know too much about them. So why Amel and the Sniffers, your opening act?
I just love them. I just absolutely love them. I saw them live supporting Liam Gallagher for the first time, and then I saw them a few days later in Bristol. And so the singer, she's just brilliant. She's just so much fun. She's crazy, like absolutely crazy. But yeah, they're just full of energy, and I just think they'd be perfect to get the crowd going.
Great shout. So Amel and the Sniffers are going to open Shine Fest. They get to play for an hour, so they play from 2 till 3 o'clock. They make their Fantastival debut. Then that'll take us to 3:30, and it'll be time for our Super Seconds act. So Sam, who's going to be your Super Seconds act?
So I'm going over to America now for my Super Second act, and a band called The War on Drugs.
Ah, great shout with the War on Drugs. So, again, a band I'm familiar with. I think this is the first time they've been picked for a fantasy festival, correlating with my Fantastival headquarters. It is the first time the War on Drugs have been picked for a fantasy festival. Great band, Sam. So, why are they your Super Seconds act?
Well, I think I saw them in April in Edinburgh, the Vase Page in Edinburgh, and then I went to go and watch them the following night, and just mind-blowing. But I can't explain it. Just watching them was just amazing. Well, I can't remember what venue. I think I've been an O2 Academy or something. But yeah, I love that album. Just think they're just perfect for a festival. I've not seen them at a festival yet, but I just can imagine them being just mind-blowing. And I've picked those as well, if I can, to have the whole album played.
Oh, of course you can. So what album are you going to have the War on Drugs play?
It's called I Don't Live Here Anymore.
Great shout.
Released last September. But it's just one of those albums that you just got to listen to from start to finish. And they released a couple of weeks ago, they put an extra couple of tracks on the end as well. Just an extra couple of bonus tracks, like a year later.
I love it when bands do that. When you're like in love with an album and they go, right, here's like 6 or 7 tracks from it, and you're like, what? Like it's such a good feeling.
Yeah, they're honestly, they're such a good band. They're so special, like so different to everything else that's out there as well. I love them.
Great shout. So 2 new acts on the Fantastival roster already. So Emerald and the Sniffers, War on Drugs are your first 2 acts. That will take us to 5 o'clock, and it'll be time for your Midway Madness act. So Sam, who's going to be your Midway Madness act?
Fontaines DC.
Oh, okay. So Fontaines DC, they have been at a Fantastival podcast before. This is their second appearance in the fantasy festival world. A band who seem to be getting bigger and bigger with each passing week. So Sam, why Fontaines DC playing Shinefest?
Again, just love them. I've just loved them since the first record came out. Before the first record came out, I just think they're fun. I just think they're brilliant, and I just love watching the way their music is kind of evolving with them too. And they're supporting Arctic Monkeys in in America too, which is great. It's such a huge support slot for them. But yeah, I just think they're super cool. I just love this whole like post-punk era that's coming back in again, and they're kind of like at the forefront of it. I think like there's a lot of bands that are coming through on the back of Fontaines DC, like the Murder Capital, the Clockworks. Yeah, I think they're going to be really important. I think they're just, like you said, just getting bigger and bigger, and I'm just really glad that I kind of like caught them right at the start.
Have you been lucky enough to see them yet, or have you still waiting to see them?
Yeah, I've seen them quite a few times. When was the last time that I saw them? It was in Bristol last year. But I haven't got a ticket yet, but I'm hoping to get a ticket for next month in London.
Good shout. So Fontaines DC, second fantasy festival appearance. They were picked previously by Paula Cairns, who I'm sure you know Paula.
I do know Paula.
Yeah, Paula picked them as her Super Seconds act back at her fantasy festival. So Fontaines DC, take your Midway Madness slot. We'll take another half-hour break, and that'll take us to 6:30, and it'll be time for your pre-headline act. We're going to get an hour and a half, so a fantastic first 3 acts, Sam. Who's going to be your pre-headline act?
I just want to check. I'm allowed acts that aren't together anymore.
You're a fantasy festival, Sam, so you can put together acts who don't despise each other. You can have them back in the room. Not a problem. Who are you going for?
Oasis as my pre-headline act. A lot of people would expect me to go for them to be the headliner, but my pre-headline act.
So I guess why I thought you might go for Oasis, because we talked about your dog and you said your dog was called Lila, and I thought it must be quite a big Oasis fan to name it after your dog. So Oasis have gone through a bit of a renaissance on this podcast. I didn't get picked very much in the first 100 episodes, and they've been picked a couple of times in the last few weeks. So this is the 6th time Liam and Noel and the guys are playing a fantasy festival. So 2 questions for you, Sam. Why Oasis? And also, what Oasis lineup are you having? Because I think that's a very important question as well.
That is very, very important. I'd have to go with the original lineup. With Griggsy there, like little Griggsy before we left, I'll have to go the original lineup. And Oasis, I am like an Oasis super fan. So like my bedroom, you can see in the background, see the guitar on the wall.
Yeah.
That's Bonehead's guitar.
Oh wow, is it really?
Yeah. Well, it's not his actual guitar. It's just, but it's signed by Bonehead.
Genius.
It's signed by Bonehead, and I've got. Hold on. If I take you up, if I show you the top of my shelf, it's like my.
Oh, I can see it. Yeah, I can see the Union Jack guitar.
It's like a little Oasis shrine.
Oh wow.
So yeah, and you can see all my DVDs there as well. I've got all the Oasis DVDs. So yeah, I'm a bit of a. But yeah, I go original lineup. If Oasis are ever going to reform, it's got to be the original lineup. I had to have Oasis on there. I have seen Oasis, but I want them to get back together again.
I think everyone's kind of rooting for that. Like I know you said you've seen Liam. I can kind of take or leave Liam. I've got to be honest, as a solo act, because he played. To be fair though, I went to the Taylor Hawkins gig where Liam done the first 2 songs, and he was exceptional. Like, he came out and he owned it for like the first 10 minutes. He was great. But
that looked unbelievable, that tribute. And to be fair, it was Foo Fighters were nearly going to be on my list as well, on my fantasy lineup. Maybe like the last act, but I went for a different one in the end. But that Taylor Hawkins, I watched it from start to finish, and like when Liam Gallagher came on all the way through, I was just absolutely hooked, mesmerised. It's great, wasn't it?
Yeah,
were you actually there in Wembley?
Yeah, I went to Wembley Stadium, which was amazing. That was as close as what I'm ever going to get to a Fantastival experience, because you had Liam being backed by the Foo Fighters, and then you had AC/DC singer, Metallica drummer, and the Foos all playing like
it was
AC/DC song.
It was absolutely fantastic. Yeah, it was just so moving, wasn't it?
It was amazing. I must go back to Oasis quickly and ask you, is there anything that you'd have to hear them play? Because an hour and a half seems like a lot, but probably isn't really. Are there any kind of tracks you would have to hear Oasis play?
Acquiesce, Columbia, Slide Away. I'd love to hear Fade In, Fade Out, Fade In Out, one of my favourite songs. Gas Panic, so many. Yeah, I think there will be loads, but those are my like top. Live Forever, obviously.
Love it. Great tracks. Oasis are playing Shine On, but not headlining. So Oasis get to play for an hour and a half. They're going to play till 8 o'clock, 1 more half-hour break, and that'll take us to 8:30, where your headline acts are going to get 2.5 hours to play, Sam. So 4 amazing acts so far, but who is going to headline Shinefest?
Shinefest. I know, because there's Shine On, isn't there, as well?
Yeah.
I've gone for the Mighty Queen.
Good shout. So Queen, again, got picked loads at the beginning, but haven't been picked in a while, actually. It's the 7th time they've been picked on the Fantastival podcast. So Sam, why Queen headlining Shinefest?
I've just see footage of them, and it's probably like if someone said to you, like, if you go back in time and watch one band live, it would 1,000,000% be Queen. Or you just watch it back, and I've seen like Bohemian Rhapsody and things, and whenever I listen to Queen, I just get goosebumps, and you just watch their live performance, and he was just the greatest showman like that's ever been, really. Like I watched them just in awe, and I just would absolutely love the opportunity to see them live. So yeah, that was never in doubt. I think as soon as you said my festival or my fantasy festival lineup, I was like, Queen. I just think, what an amazing end to a day.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. I obviously never saw Queen with Freddie Mercury, but I went to see him earlier this year at the O2 because a mate had got some tickets for his birthday, and I was a bit like, oh, okay, it won't really be great because Freddie's not there. So I saw him with Adam Lambert, and it was one of the best things I've ever seen. Like, it was literally 2.5 hours, and from the second song, it was just well-known classic hits. And Adam Lambert was great. Visually, they had so much going on, and they'd done it was a nice ode to Freddie without it being cheesy and without it feeling forced the way they'd done it. So it was really good.
Oh yeah, I'd love to see them with Adam Lambert as well. Absolutely would. But I think the original, just to see Freddie, because he was just such a superstar, wasn't he? I think even nowadays, like the difference between like us and celebrities is not we sort of kind of like see them on our level now. But I think like even like with Freddie Mercury, he was just a superstar of another level. Like people idolised him, and yeah, I just think wow, what a band. I know they're not everyone's cup of tea, like music wise, but you can't deny that as a live band that they are just one of the best performing bands like we've ever known, like entire music history.
Yeah. Absolutely. So Queen are your Fantasy Festival headliners. They play 2.5 hours, and at 11 o'clock they bring Oasis back on stage with Fontaines DC, The War on Drugs, and Amyl and the Sniffers, and they all get to play one song. I'm happy for the Ras to come out. The Ras can be backstage, and we can bring the Ras out. I'm starting to get a bit loose with my encore now. Last week I gave Indie Emporium 2 songs, and now I'm saying, let's bring out another band. So let's bring the Ras out to give them some great exposure at your Fantasy Festival, and they can play your encore as well. But Sam, what song are you going to have all your 5 acts and the Ras play?
So I didn't actually think about this. Maybe I didn't read it properly. But I'm just thinking of it now. It would be great if Queen didn't play Bohemian Rhapsody during their set. And then when everyone else comes on stage, if they all do like little individual bits of Bohemian Rhapsody, I think that would be really funny. that would be good to watch.
That would be genius to watch. I'd like to see Liam and Noel take on the various bits during Bohemian Rhapsody. I think they'll do it justice. Yeah, that's brilliant. All right, so Bohemian Rhapsody is your encore in. So let's lock this Fantasy Festival in. So we have Shinefest, are we keeping it a Shinefest? Have we thought of anything else?
I haven't really. Can you think of anything that's slightly better?
I think Shinefest is alright, considering it fits in nice with the surname. Alright, Shinefest at Stourhead National Park. Stourhead National Park, right? Yeah. We got Amaral and the Sniffers opening up, followed by Warren Drugs, who are going to play their album I Don't Live Here Anymore in full. They're going to be followed in your midway man slot by Fontaines DC. Oasis are going to be a pre-headline act, with Queen being your headliner. And for your encore, all 5 acts are going to play Bohemian Rhapsody together. Sam, that sounds amazing to me. You happy to lock that one into the Fantastival vaults?
Do it. Yes, I'm happy.
Great stuff. So before we end this episode, Sam, what do the next kind of few months look like for you? I know you've obviously got the radio show and the Ras. Is it kind of full steam ahead, keep going as it is?
Yeah, we've got, I can't say anything at the moment, but we've got quite a big support slot to announce very shortly. So I'll be going up to Glasgow for that one. That's next month. I think it's the 13th of November. That'll be going up to Glasgow. That's probably giving it away now. People are just like, Google, what's going on in Glasgow on that day? So we've got that. What else have we got to go? They've got a show in January, so we're going to have a quiet Christmas away from the Ras stuff, but always plugged in the background. We're working on next year's plan, next year's festivals, next year's tour, which is probably at the end of next year, more than likely. But it's just the music scene, venues get booked out immediately, so we're already thinking about like a year's time. So yeah, it's all systems go all the time, but it's good fun.
Brilliant. And as for you, you keep doing the radio show and pushing the new music and keep driving that forward?
Yeah, always, yeah, as much as I can in between work and dog walking and everything else. But yeah, I'll keep doing as much as I can. I've got quite a few gigs coming up. I've got Andrew Cushion on Tuesday, which will probably be it'll be in the past. When I had Andrew Cushion last Tuesday, he was great. Got Andrew Cushion tomorrow. I've got a few more gigs coming up this month and next month, so I'll be out and about quite a lot as well.
And he's being supported by Megan Wynn, who I've had on the podcast before. So she
supported him last night. Yeah, I love Meg.
She's brilliant.
Such a little doll, but she's not in Bristol tomorrow.
Oh, that's a shame. So lots of gigs in for you, lots of full steam ahead. Sam, if anyone doesn't follow you already on social media and likes the sound of you and what you do, how do people find Sam Shiner?
It's probably very hard, to be honest. But my username is Shiner_Sam, and you are more than welcome to join in. I do tweet a lot about music, but obviously if you're a fan of music, you'll be listening to this. So yeah, do come along. I do a lot of stuff with new bands that I always hope people listen to and follow and love and then tell their mates.
Brilliant, great stuff. So that is it. Thanks to everyone for listening to the 106th episode of the Fantastival Podcast. And if you've enjoyed this one, please subscribe, give the Fantastival Podcast a review on iTunes, or you can rate the show on Spotify, which is very important. So if you're listening, please remember to do that, and also to recommend the podcast to all of your families and your friends. Sam is on social media, so is the podcast. You can find us on Twitter at FantastivalP, so please give us a follow if you don't already do so. And we don't play music on this podcast, but I'll get some tracks from Sam. We'll make a nice little Spotify playlist of her chosen acts, and we'll put that in the episode description to this podcast. So Sam, a massive thank you for being my guest on this episode. How have you found it? I know normally going from a host sometimes to a guest can be a bit daunting and a bit different. How have you found the experience?
Oh no, loved it. I love doing stuff like this. Yeah, it's always a pleasure. It's always nice to meet someone new as well. So I'm grateful for you asking me along. No, it's been good. I've enjoyed my mind think earlier. I was like, who am I going to pick? I don't know. I was saying I did go through quite a few bands. Like, oh no, not sure. But I am happy. I'm happy with my choices. I know it's been good fun.
Brilliant. I think you've done a great job with Shinefest. That will go down in the Fantastival archives of legend. So I will be back then next week with episode 107. So please make sure to join me. But until then, stay safe, my Fantastival friends. Please continue to spread the word. And that word is Fantastival. Thanks for listening.